What drives your behavior? This is a very simple question, but a lot of people have real difficulty when it comes to that question. When they ask themselves, what is driving my behavior? In the 19th century, Anton Chekhov said, man is what he believes. Obviously, it's equally applicable to women. So, woman is what she believes. So, humans are what they believe. So, if you believe you can do anything, fantastic. But what if you don't believe you can do anything? Are these beliefs about yourself, these self beliefs, fixed, and can they be changed, or are they set at a certain age, perhaps your late teenage years, and that's it? You have the same self beliefs for life. Well, you can grow and strengthen self beliefs, and you can change them. You can change biologically those beliefs that are locked in your brain. As Henry Ford says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. This video is going to look at, what components make up that self-belief. What is it that when we say we are what we believe, if we don't like what it is that we believe we can or can't do, how do you change that? We're going to look at 5 of the most powerful components of self-beliefs and how you can manage them to increase and maintain a better self-belief about what you can and what you can accomplish. This is the 5-minute brain hacks video channel, and as ever, we're looking at the brain. And today we're going to look at how you can influence your own self-belief biologically, and how you can change your self-beliefs for the better. Okay, let's get started. So, what is the first component of self-belief? Well, according to Dr. Bobby Hoffman, the first component of self-belief and the most important one is control. On control, he says, the most dominant self-belief is our assessment of the degree of control we have over our own destiny. Control beliefs dictate whether we pursue goals and tasks for reasons external to the psychic self or to satisfy the inner psychological strivings of the core self. So this will go back to an earlier video on 5-minute brain hacks. That was to do with control. If you remember, we started off that video with a quote from Marcus Aurelius saying, you have the power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. So just think about that for a moment in terms of self-belief and control. You have the power over your own mind, but not outside events. You need to realize that, and in that realization, you will and do find strength. In 1966, Julian Rotter was doing some work on what he termed the social learning framework. He was developing notions about generalized expectancies, and he was examining beliefs about how things worked in the world. And one of those notions was called the locus of control. Essentially, this was a scale of whether people saw that they had control of their lives, whether they controlled their lives themselves, whether that control was internal to themselves or external, whether other factors in life were controlling them. Those people with an external locus of control tended to be more depressed, have more anxiety, and tended not to give 100% in anything that they did because they didn't think that it would ultimately benefit them, because ultimately control was outside of them. Those with an internal locus of control generally were more successful, more healthier, and they put a more conscious focus on, controlling their own fate. They believed that their actions would influence in a positive way their own life. We also looked at the book called The Biggest Bluff, Maria Konnikova, and she said that the language that we use becomes our mental habits, and our mental habits determine how we learn, how we grow, and what we become. Now, she was talking about the intricacies of poker and playing poker under extreme stress, but it's also applicable on a broader scale to life in general. She went on to say our thinking about luck has real consequences in terms of our emotional well being, our decisions, and the way we implicitly view the world and our role in it. There is no objective reality. Every time we experience something, we interpret it through our own internal filter. And that internal filter is hugely influenced by your locus of control. If you think that you control your life internally, in terms of the decisions that you make and your behavior and your actions day to day, you're much more likely to be in a better place. But how do you do that? How, if you have an external locus of control, how do you move from external to internal? The real important point here is to understand that the locus of control is not fixed. It can move from external to internal. What you have to do is challenge the beliefs in your head when you decide to do something. You have to challenge that internal voice that is telling you you cannot do this. You need to challenge it and ask why. We know from the work of Michael Merzenich and brain plasticity that you can change the physical makeup of the brain just by thinking and by changing your thinking. And when it comes to self-belief, you can make long-term changes in the control element or the control component of your self-belief just by questioning when you think about something or you believe that you can't do something. Take time out and say, okay, am I really in control of this? What actions should I take? Or what focus should I have in order to bring that locus of control more internal and move it away from external. And as you do that, the biology in your brain changes, and doing it over time creates long-term changes in the brain and ultimately brings you to a better and more confident place in terms of that locus of control. So we'll wrap the control piece up with a quote from, again, Marcus Aurelius: because a thing seems difficult for you, do not think it impossible for anyone to accomplish. Okay, let's move on now to the next component of self-belief. The second important component of self-belief, according to educational psychologist Dr. Bobby Hoffman, is that of competence. He says competence beliefs are highly influential for motivated behavior. Competency beliefs include assessments of our overall ability to achieve desired outcomes, but can also reflect micro-level assessments of the perceived skills and abilities needed to complete a task, such as writing an article or installing computer software. The sources of competency appraisals are varied, some based on past performance, while others focus on current challenges or on the anticipation of gaining desirable outcomes. Individuals, you or I, will tend to appraise their degree of confidence not entirely upon actual ability and knowledge, but upon presumed competency beliefs, including the perceptions of the individual by others. Have a think about that. A lot of our own assessment or self-assessment about our own competency is actually not an objective view, it's subjective. We may have doubts about our own competency based on what else we see out in the world. We may compare ourselves unfavorably to others. It's not an objective view. When you think of developing competency, we know again from previous videos on brain plasticity that the more we do something, the better we get at it. The brain changes in terms of what you practice. So developing and practicing competency in a certain area means biologically you're changing and you're getting better at something. Don't compare yourself to others. The only comparison that should be happening when you're talking about competency and self-belief is with yourself on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. Look at your competency at different intervals over time and just have the objective reasoning to look at how that competency is improving. Don't compare yourself to others. Develop your self-belief in yourself through increased competency. And as you increase competency, the brain changes. Just look at your own progress over time. It's not about moving from a complete novice to a complete expert. It's that path or that journey where incrementally you take a step in the right direction every time you learn something new. It's not, it is, and this is really important. It is not about becoming the expert. It is about that journey. It is about developing your competency. As you develop that competency, as you develop that knowledge, your self-belief in yourself increases. Okay, I know that. So think about that. Your self-belief in yourself increases as your competency increases. Just don't think externally. and comparisons when you're thinking about competency. Think about yourself. So let's move on to number 3. The third component of self-belief, according to Dr. Bobby Hoffman, is that of value. And on value, he says, a third influential self-belief is the degree of value we associate with different task outcomes, which fluctuates according to the individual and cultural standards, as well as the extent of cognitive, social, and moral development. When ascribing low value to a potential goal or task, individuals are reluctant to invest effort. For example, who would devote extraordinary cognitive and financial resources to completing law school or invest physical energy towards running in a 10-mile race when the payoff is seen as marginal, uninteresting, or of questionable value? Value assessments, he says, include attainment value that represents the degree of relative importance the individual places on the completed task. Intrinsic value, measured by how much an individual subjectively enjoys doing and completing the task, and utility value, which represents the perceived usefulness afforded to doing or mastering the task from an applied perspective. So let's think about value here. When you are focusing on something, when it comes to self-belief and behavior, and you're thinking of value, where is the value in your actions? This was recently discussed on a video with Rich Roll and Dr. Andrew Huberman. And the question of value was spoken about. And where you need to get to in terms of value is doing an activity for the internal value that it creates for you. If we take the simple example of completing this video on self-beliefs, the value for me is in completing the video and in developing an understanding of the 5 different components of self-belief. That for me is an internal value, and that's enough for me to be motivated to learn more about it and to complete the task. The value for other people will be very different. But when it comes to self-belief and building my self-belief and the component of value, it's an internal value that I'm looking to fulfill. If you identify value external to you in terms of other people have to see it a certain way, it is going to be very difficult for you to finish or complete tasks. Remember, we're trying to ultimately enhance your self-belief here, and the component of value within self-belief for it to be internal is where it's going to make a difference. Looking for value external is going to be really, really difficult. Okay, let's go on to the next component of self-belief. The fourth component of self-belief is that of goal orientation. Dr. Hoffman says, a fourth and highly influential self-belief relates to the reasons we pursue goals. Goal orientation represents the alleged purpose for engaging in learning or the reasons a particular performance target is chosen. Typically situated as an explanation of academic behavior, individuals may elect to pursue academic knowledge and personal development for either normative and appearance reasons or for the inherent satisfaction of mastering a skill or ability. So there's probably no surprise to hear that if you're interested in knowledge for the sake of mastering a skill or ability, that it's much more likely that you're going to be invested in that to a much greater degree. He goes on to say, when a goal pursuit is based upon an appearance belief, the individual is focused on looking good in the eyes of peers or avoiding the public humiliation that may accompany goal failure. This approach employs a social comparison motive because the individual is less concerned about results but more focused on the assessment of capability from others. So the assessment of capability from others, this is the external locus of control at work again. Dr. Hoffman goes on to say, conversely, mastery-orientated individuals typically show greater interest in the accumulation of knowledge, unlike the cosmetic intentions of relative expertise endemic to the normative performer. So if you're interested in knowledge because you want to develop in that area, in a specific field, and you want to build your knowledge over time, you want to, become a master of it. As I said before, it's not the attainment of that mastery per se, it's more the behavior or the attitude you have towards gaining that mastery knowledge that is important. The impact of orientation is highly instrumental in the strategies that individuals will use to reach their goals. He says mastery performers are more inclined to seek help when needed, are better at monitoring their task progress, and are more willing to try new or alternative strategies to reach their desired outcomes than their egotistical peers. So when it comes to goal orientation and self-belief, it's beneficial to understand that the attainment of your goals and the attainment of knowledge in pursuit of your goals is much more likely to have a positive impact on you if you are motivated to gain knowledge because you want to and not for the external validation that that may bring. So let's move on to the fifth and final component of self-belief. The fifth and final component of self-belief is that of epistemology. Dr. Hoffman says people have beliefs about the nature of knowledge acquisition and intelligence in general. While many different types of views may be espoused concerning epistemology, people fall into one of three categories when it comes to how knowledge is acquired and advanced. First, individuals may believe that knowledge is fixed, meaning there is only one way and one way only to approach a problem or opportunity. People embracing this absolutist philosophy will adhere to dogmas, believing, for example, that the best jobs are only landed as a result of strong social connections and not through skill development. Secondly, other individuals may assume a more flexible approach to thinking and believe that different opinions may be justified. They are willing to consider alternative perspectives, although usually deferring to their desired position. And thirdly, others may assess all views as equally warranted, but believe that one position is clearly justified based on the statutory, ethical, or humanistic considerations, such as when people are motivated to devote time and resources to charitable causes because of it's the right thing to do. Closely related to epistemology beliefs are conceptions concerning general intelligence. Polarized views of intelligence suggest that individuals believe that intelligence is either subject to modification based upon the acquisition of new knowledge, representing an incremental view, or that intelligence, like flat feet or bushy eyebrows, is a reality that must be accepted, thus adopting an entity intelligence view. Assessment of the malleability of epistemological and intelligent views can prove quite useful because each view provides revealing clues as to the behavior individuals will exhibit regarding persuasion, negotiation, and sales efforts during many facets of their lives. So again, it's really important to take the incremental view here on intelligence when it comes to your own self-belief and the area around epistemiology. We know intelligence is not fixed. We know the brain has significant plasticity components to it. So you change your brain depending on what you focus on. And linking knowledge to intelligence, it is 100% possible to increase your knowledge in a particular area and by default increase your intelligence and as we've spoken about competence before in a certain area. So it's important to take the incremental view regarding intelligence and the acquisition of knowledge are linked to improving on an ongoing basis. So they're the five categories that we've looked at today. We've spoken about the self-belief components. The first one was control, the second one competency, the third one value, the fourth one goal orientation, and the fifth one was epistemology. So when it comes to developing self-belief and changing your self-belief, or positively growing your self-belief to think about what you can and can't accomplish, if you think about those five components and think about how you talk to yourself around each one, remember ultimately that the brain is very malleable, that you can increase your competence in any area you decide to do that. As you increase your competence, you increase your knowledge, you increase your general intelligence around a specific topic. But it's very important to question your own internal thinking when it comes to your self-beliefs. Any thoughts you have that do not contribute positively to your self-belief need to be questioned. Think about where these beliefs may have come from, where these negative thoughts may have come from, and look to change them. So that's it this week from 5-Minute Brain Hacks. It's really important as we develop our understanding of the brain that you know self-belief is not stuck at a certain point. We've talked about the locus of control and how you have control ultimately over your actions and ultimately your behavior. If you've liked this video, please leave a comment and let me know about your own challenges with self-belief, or like the video, or subscribe to the channel. We'd be delighted to have you as a subscriber. Thank you.